Hello, and welcome to the About Healing podcast, a show created for those on or awakening into their spiritual journeys, and who are ready, wanting, and learning how to heal themselves. I am your host, About Healing medium and certified spiritual healer, Sheree Buckman. It is my purpose to guide others to the path of self-healing and to inspire those on their spiritual journeys in finding their truths. Join me as I share my experience and unfiltered perspective in healing, as well as the incredible wisdom of the loving energy that guides us. Let's begin. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of About Healing podcast. Today, I actually have something a little special for you. This is going to be a little different because back in November, I did my very first live About Healing podcast event where I recorded an episode with a live audience. I truly had no idea what to expect from this experience when I started it. I was completely humbled by the response. I was joined by an incredible group of women who were open and ready to receive the healing messages that I brought forward in this themed healing topic, as well as a group mediumship reading. And I wanted to take a minute to introduce this episode because this live recording was one of the major factors that kind of pushed me into creating the theme for this season. The topic of that event was owning your power. It is about understanding how to find your truth and authentic power. It is a guide in trust, intuition, and faith. So within this episode, I give many examples of my own journey to owning my power. And I give this many times over and over again throughout. But truly, it is also about, and is just an example that what you are going through, that you too have this power to kind of see where you're at and reclaim the right to power within your own life. So throughout this season, I will continue to expand further on the points made here while adding so many more. And just a side note for you all, that while the attending group also received a live group mediumship reading, that portion will not be included in today's episode. And I hope you enjoy it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of About Healing podcast. I am really excited today to share. This is something very different. This is a very special episode because this is a live episode. And what I mean by that is that I'm not really talking right now in current time and you're listening, but I am recording this with a live audience. I am now starting with my very first live small group where I get to record today's topic. And I really feel this is really important and this is a beautiful topic. And I really want to get into a little bit of background today because in season 1, even though I was drawn, most of my life I have dealt with this fear of stepping out and people seeing me, seeing the true side of me, understanding truly who I am. And not being afraid of it, not being afraid of the judgments that come from others. And as most of you have heard, if you listened to the whole season 1 of the podcast, you saw that growth as when it went from me starting with Katie, and then when I took this over on my own, and to what it has become to this day. Because with it, this podcast is not only about helping others and understanding their healing and their growth and taking those steps for themselves, but I'm sharing it in a place where I am doing it also. I am sharing my experiences. And so this topic is so appropriate as I am talking about this because today's topic is about owning your power. And more specifically, it is about understanding how to find your truth and authentic power. It is a guide to trust, intuition, and faith in yourself. I think it's really easy for most of us to have that faith and to have more confidence in others than we do for ourselves. It's a really hard transition, growth, struggle when you're coming from a place where you have either doubted yourself, you've been taught to doubt yourself, or to keep quiet, or where you've had to minimize you and your true beliefs, your true wants, your true authentic self just to fit into society, to friends, to family, to culture, so on and so forth. I was definitely one of those. I moved a lot. My childhood was unstable at times. I had been to 11 different schools by my sophomore year in high school, just to kind of break that down of how often I moved and going to new places. And so it became a survival tactic for me is to learn how to fit in, not to stand out. Because being the new person, you don't really want to stand out. It makes you an easy target, especially for me, who's already dealing with being slightly overweight, frizzy red hair, freckles, all of those things, along with being the new kid and having a very loud, big energy. Until very recent time, I have learned to stop apologizing for myself, for my energy. And actually, it is beautiful because my friend Copper here, I love Copper, while even recording the podcast, would start yelling at me to say, stop apologizing for your bigness. Because I would be prepared, getting prepared and starting an episode, and I would sit there and I would try to build my energy because it's just part of my process. And it gets big and it gets weird. I get weird. It's just what happens. When I say weird, it's just I get a little giggly. I don't know. How would you describe it, Papa?
Giggly is a good term.
Okay, giggly is a good term. Yeah. So it's just where I go. And sometimes I feel like I am distracting others, or that maybe it's too much for others because that's been part of my experience or what I perceive, because I'm also an empath and I can take on other people's energy, or I can feel just part of their feelings. And sometimes I always feel that it's because of me. I'm also a people pleaser. So all of that's intertwined in there. And so it gets in my head and I'm wondering, well, because I came in so big, I need to apologize. I'm so sorry. I made you feel awkward. And I have to realize that other people are dealing with their own triggers. But I'm allowed to be me. Once I literally just said that, I think I was hit by a big emotion. I know today was going to be a big day talking on this topic because it is a huge day of transition for me too. And that's why I feel I have the qualities it takes to talk about this subject. Because I have literally gone through it and am still going through it. And this is another day where I get to peel off another layer in that healing. Because healing doesn't happen in one moment. It is a process that takes time, and we do it little by little. And as we keep going, we do that little by little. It gets easier and easier. Maybe easier is not the best word to use. It just gets less and less triggering. Let's put it that way. And so I want to break it down for you and what I've learned and how I learned to get to the place I am today. To say today that I am no longer apologizing for being me. That I can stand here and say, I'm a medium and I talk to spirit. It's the truth. And for some people, that would throw them off in another trigger because it's not their belief. And I respect that. And I had to understand and separate too that I don't have to be supported by everybody. Not everybody has to believe me. And not everybody has to like me, but I will treat everybody with love and respect, even if I don't get it in return, because I am setting a standard. I am setting an example. That's a big truth. Sorry, I'm sitting here in this and I'm realizing again the depth of what I just said for my own self too, to sit here and say, it's okay if you don't like me. And I'm not sitting here feeling like really shameful or embarrassed about that. I actually feel really good and empowered to say it's okay. Although I feel like you probably, no. Are we feeling any attachment yet? Nothing? Okay, well, you're here and that says something, okay? And that's okay. So, but all I can do is be honest. Because in honesty and in vulnerability, and we're going to get more onto that word in a minute because that's a big piece of this, is when we allow that, is when we allow people to see your truest self. And that's what draws to you the people, the situations, the path, the life, the circumstances that you are looking for. And when we hide ourselves, that's where we feel out of place. We feel not aligned in our purpose, where life just seems confusing and doesn't make sense. And so to get here, the first step is trying to understand authenticity. What does authenticity mean, you ask? I don't know, some of you might be asking. It's kind of a big word for some people. But authenticity to me is about finding yourself outside of your roles in family and society. This isn't about what is expected of you and your actions, your thoughts, and your job, and your appearance, and how you speak or how you present yourself. etc., etc. Because no one can mold you into your authentic self. That comes from deep within. Only you know that. And you may not even know what that is yet. But just the fact of questioning that and starting to look inside is part of the unfolding and learning. Because no matter what, and going and getting and looking and seeking help, it is beautiful. If you're in a place that you need help to understand who you are and how to unfold all of the heaviness that you hold. Even in a session with me, I can help uncover the outside sources, but to truly heal, it comes within yourself and finding yourself. There's no cheat way through it, or it all comes back and you have to start again, or it gets layered on heavily. But authenticity, those are your deepest truths. The scary ones, the anxious ones, the good ones. It's all of it. Because our authentic self is not always what other people see as the purest when we look at it from the outside looking in, but it's the purest if you are owning it and that's truly who you are. And I truly mean that, the good and the bad. It is the light and the dark. We are not one or the other. We are always a combination of. We all have our dark side. We all have those pieces that we try to hide from others. Yes, we all have those. I'm sitting here thinking like, do I? Of course I do. Of course I do. There are things, of course, I don't talk about. And some things I've gotten really honest about on the podcast that I'm sure I have family members who are like, I didn't know that because I kept it hidden and didn't want anybody to know. I am getting to a place where I can talk about that. And then, of course, talking about finding your true self and then facing the good and the bad parts of yourself. Well, then now we're getting into, because this was my big trigger, it was a fear trigger. This has truly been a huge lesson in my 2022. That whole year has been about facing my fears. And one of my biggest fears was facing the fear of judgment of others. Will others accept me? Will others listen to my podcasts? Will they think it's ridiculous and that she just talks in circles and circles and circles? Harsh truth, I do. And you know what? That's okay. I can own it now because that's just who I am. And I cannot change anything until I accept it and acknowledge it and then start working with it. I'm actually proud of myself right now. I'm not talking in too big of circles. But the big fear, again, as I told you with a little bit of that background story of me, is that I was always the new kid. And so I didn't want to stand out. I felt like I already stood out as it was. I mean, as you can see, I have this big mane. I look like I have a lion's mane. I have this big curly hair. But as a child, I never would let my mom touch it. So there was no product, nothing else, and it was just frizz. And then, of course, because my mom loves me, and when I asked her to cut my hair really, really short, of course she did. And then, very shortly after, I asked her to perm my hair on top of that. She did. For the one time, I wish she would have said no. I wish I would have brought pictures. I don't even know if I have these pictures. And if I feel brave enough, I might show them on social media. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a surprise. The point is, I made choices and I was supported by, my mom is a huge supporter. No matter who I was, she's always supported. Even to this day, has never questioned me. Never questioned one thing I ever wanted. Again, sometimes I look back and I wish she would have because of those fashion choices that made me stand out like a sore thumb. Oh, and did I mention with that haircut, I had bangs and I wanted those perm too? Oh yeah, like 90s style perm, like the tight little perm, and there's like these little tight, just wait for the pictures, just wait. But because of that, and because I have this extra part of me that has always sensed and felt what others feel, and I was always in a survival mode of wanting to fit in or make friends, that it was extra in tune of trying to figure people out and whether they liked me or not. Because I was always the easy target and I was bullied growing up. And to hear more about that story, go back to that episode because I'm not going to relive the whole thing now because everything's great. We're all good. But I am bringing that up again here because I want others to understand of where it began for me, of where that fear of judgment began. And that was a big thing that I had to go back and I didn't fully understand it until I became more honest and started talking about this feeling and that fear. And I was able to talk more and more. And then I finally found the trigger and where it started. Because we cannot heal that part until we go back to the trigger. And we find that. And I had to go back to my young self. And I had to tell myself that, girl, you rocked that perm. I mean, I laugh at myself when I look at the picture, but dang it, I did it and I was brave and I still lived it and it was awesome. And I still survived today and I can still rock my curly hair. Will I go that short with bangs with a perm again? No, and I never recommend it to anybody. However, we live and we learn. And that's all part of that, is that we have those experiences and we live and we learn. But in this process of finding and owning your power and getting past this and the fear itself, I wish I could tell you there was a magic pill. I wish I can tell you there was something beautiful and amazing that you can do to get past the fear that heals it all the way to its core. But what I've learned to get past the fear is to do it anyway. Standing here right now, starting this podcast, these are my biggest fears coming to light. I have stood and I have talked to whole school assemblies before. I have stood in rooms and talked to dozens and dozens of families about very deep and traumatic things. But I have never done it being vulnerable and speaking my truth. I have only done it by talking about other people's truth or presenting information that was given to me. So right now I am living my biggest fear. And it was a scary start for me in the beginning. And so I don't know, some of you saw that for a minute. I was shaking. I was trying to hide it and only show copper. But it was because I am in this. I am in this. And I don't regret a minute. I have been going through a lot of spikes in the fear factor in my own life. I have been drawing to me triggers of these fears in these past couple of months. Have they been comfortable? I mean, would you be comfortable facing your fears all at once? No. But I knew it was happening for a reason, and it was allowing me to move past this. And I couldn't move past it until I went head first and faced it. And having honest conversations with the situations that arise, I also became honest and said that these are my triggers. And because of that, it allowed me to let go. And I realized that they weren't as scary as they were in my head. Because once you get past it, like now that I'm doing this, I feel great. It was the start. It's always the start for me. It's like just getting started and getting past that fear factor. Whether you do get stage fright. I don't get stage fright. But it is scary when you talk about your truth and allowing that vulnerability. For me anyway, that's scary. But I would imagine for most people that is too. The other piece that came up in understanding this and bringing myself to a place now where I can own my true self and I can own my power was I had to go backwards again. Not only is it seeing your fears, following the trail to its original trigger and knowing where it came from and why you have it, it is also about going through and weeding through your own beliefs from childhood, from family, from society itself, and finding what's true for you. Because it is something that happens since the moment we're born, is that we are watching the world and learning from it. We are absorbing and learning how to interact in it. Starting with our parents, siblings, learning to crawl, when to talk, when to cry. I mean, as you're going in your childhood, the things you should talk about or not talk about. And so then we collect these things, or we watch those around us in the things that they don't talk about, or they see them react maybe negatively or in a big way about a certain topic, and you know never to talk about that topic, or you've learned, well, that's bad. So that's something I shouldn't believe. Now, while talking about this, I really want to be careful here, and I want to make sure that it is understood that I'm not saying that your family beliefs are not true and it's not true for you. That's not what I'm saying. I am talking to those who have struggles in understanding what to believe in because they feel so differently or have beliefs that are very different from those around them. Because the truth is, no matter what, I am telling you on this soul level, we are all here on our own personal journey and we're all here to find our own truths. No one's truths are the same, not even in family, not all of them. And I'm not talking about just like religious beliefs or anything else. I'm talking about everything. What's real, what's not real, what's possible for you, what's possible for somebody else. Because there's so many limits that are put on us from those around us that surround us from our whole life and what we've believed for ourselves to be our own limits. But the truth is, and I have learned to understand this, especially now doing this work, and to be exactly where I am now, doing and talking about what I'm talking about now, is that we are truly limitless. There is nothing that is impossible for us. Nothing. If you believe it enough and if you work towards it, you have to do the work and you have to keep taking those steps of pushing yourself outside of that fear and keep taking those steps, you will get there. Every episode I have recorded, we're dozens in. We've done dozens of episodes. It's getting a little bit easier because in the very first season, those very first episodes, I would hold on and judge every word I said for a long period of time, wondering if I said the right things, if I was clear enough, apologizing for, again, my energy, my loudness, my repetitiveness, talking over people. Yes, I tend to do that, but I own it and it's changing, okay? So that's all part of it too. It's called healing. But if you keep taking those steps of being afraid and doing it anyway, because even though there's fear, you feel that it's right for you, you'll be amazed at the end and look back and say, holy cow. Honestly, sometimes I don't recognize myself. I'm still me. I still have these same beautiful beliefs, but I get to stand taller now. And I get to speak and do these beautiful things and connect with beautiful people. And my only goal now is to just inspire someone or to give someone a little piece of information or sharing other people's stories too and understanding that you can make those little steps for yourself too, in whatever direction you feel so drawn to do. Because I'm going to be honest here, especially when I'm talking about weeding through the false beliefs and trying to pick out the ones that aren't true for you and the ones that are true for you, is that you do need to go outside your comfort zone to find them. Because your comfort zone are the walls that you've put there to keep yourself comfortable so you're not getting all the judgments and keeping yourself safe. The truth is, we're always safe. We are. And the more that we start owning ourselves and you start pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone and taking the step to truly being yourself, yeah, you might lose a few people in the process, but what's happening is you're shedding the people that are attached to you for the wrong reasons. And the ones who truly understand you and support you will be there every step of that way and encourage you and cheer for you as you are walking down that path. And as you do that too, you're also going to start drawing to you those other people that love you for the core of the being that you are, because now you are owning your own true self, that authenticity inside. Your truth inside, showing authenticity. I think I like that better. That sounded awkward before. So be aware of your triggers. Because like I said, you cannot pivot or change it or even know how to dig deeper if you don't know where your triggers are. What's a trigger? The trigger is when you're having a conversation with someone and they say something and you get that whole anxiety feeling all of a sudden, or you get that spout of anger all of a sudden. The thing is if you're having a reaction to what somebody else says, what the news says, if anybody is sharing their own truths, which obviously don't match yours, and if you have a reaction to that, that's a trigger, because we're all different. Like I said, all of our truths are different, and we can respect each other's truths. Like, that's okay. That's where they are, and that is their truth, and that's beautiful. But when they don't respect us, sometimes that can be a huge trigger for us too. And just know that our triggers are mirrors. And that's with judgments. Judgments are mirrors. So when we find ourselves judging someone, wondering even why someone is so closed-minded, that's a trigger, because that is something that you were working on deep down inside of yourself. And so we have to go back into those judgments and ask why we are even thinking those thoughts. And to go further into this concept, go back to season 1 and listen to ego-based consciousness, where we talk about understanding that and shifting the ego. That is all part of ego, which is all part of the human-based experience. Because we are souls here having a human experience. And when we leave this plane, we leave the ego, we leave the judgments, we leave all of this. This is part of the lessons and why we're here to learn, is to grow and find our true selves, and doing it with love. So as you are finding your own truths, you have to go in and you have to use this little place that's right down here in your tummy, what we call the gut instinct. It is also called intuition, because this is our own truth center, and it's a feeling. That's when you know it's true for you. It is not done up here in the head where you have to think your way through and wondering what's true for you. It is a feeling. And that's what I tell my listeners when you are listening to, especially when I do those really big episodes, like the big Q&A in season 1 where I talked about fairies and like gnomes and all the other fun things. Look, if you're not there, that's cool. But no matter what I talk about, there is always a little spark or a feeling like, I don't know why, but that feels right. Or like, I think I understand that, but I don't know why, because that's coming from a feeling. You don't understand it because we can't think our way through it. There's just a feeling and there's that connection, and that's part of your intuition too. Sometimes we don't always understand the intuition. We're just drawn to it. And that is a huge piece about owning ourselves and knowing who we are and finding what it is true for us. It's learning how to lead our lives with that, with the intuition and the gut, and not with the head. Because then we always question ourselves. Well, but this doesn't make sense, or someone's going to judge me. Because that's where all this is coming in, is through the head. Is that let's lead with the stomach. Oh, I know, it's like feel that pull. Just feel that little tinge and be pulled in that direction. Don't question it. Sometimes just have the experience and then decide later, okay, well, maybe that wasn't right for me. Or yes, I feel like I'm on the right track. Let's not be afraid of making the mistakes of finding our truth. Trust me, I've made quite a few this past year. Especially in this and the podcast. Because again, I talk about the podcast because this is the biggest learning experience for me about owning my truth and allowing myself to be vulnerable. And sometimes it is just about having faith in yourself, having faith in your feeling. Sometimes it's really hard to go in and trust ourselves because we've made decisions before. We just don't know what or where to start, what's right and wrong. And we won't know that, what's right for us or what's wrong for us, until we start taking those steps. Or again, like I said, just follow it and do it anyway. And if it doesn't work out, it didn't work out. Let's not apologize and say, man, or go into that shame part or the guilt. Because trust me, I've been there and it sucks. That feeling that you hold on to. We all make mistakes and we should be honest about that too. Great example here. And when we're watching Hollywood, for example, and you see an actor and they do something stupid. This happens all the time. Honestly, you have someone famous doing something stupid. They're cheating on their wife or in jail again for drugs. Who knows? I'm just giving these extreme examples. But isn't it interesting? You have to think, politics is a great way to look at this too. But think about it this way. When someone tries to hide what they did and they come on TV and say, I never inhaled. Do we believe that? I mean, truly. No. And in fact, it becomes a joke now. We're like, come on. And it would have been a less deal if they own up to it. And now we see those who are like, especially even some of the big hot messes in Hollywood. And I say that, okay, with love. I'm not judging. I'm just saying those who make those choices that everybody sits here and we judge. But when they are honest and say, yes, I have a problem, and then they do something about it, whether they go to rehab, you know what, even if they're not even truly about getting the help, but they were honest in what happened, we as a society are more forgiving because it just made it a real moment. They are human just like me. And we need to do that for each other. And it's important for us not to judge others and their mistakes too, because remember, it goes both ways. We now get to set the example, and change happens through us. We always wish the world would change. The only way for the world to change is us. Yourself is doing the work and creating inspiration for others, is being the example. It does not have to be a perfect example. It is showing that you can change and you can grow no matter what circumstances you came from. That is what that's about. So we just have to go in there and change our perception about how we see ourselves and how we see others, especially on this journey in finding our truths and in our own healing. We are all on our own journeys, and we are learning and experiencing different things through a shared experience. We've all been through trauma. We have all been in a place where someone has told us we were less than, or told us we couldn't do this, or we felt minimized in some way. But we grow from it, and if you need help, we need to be honest about it. Because being honest, even in our trauma, is huge in healing, and it shows others that others can be honest about it too, and that we don't need to hide our emotions and push it deeper down, which causes more anxiety and causes more physical illnesses, because we are hiding those emotions and trauma within. And the more we trust ourselves and we live in authenticity and own our own power, the more we inspire others to do the same. And as I said, the same goes in all forms of healing. And this was an amazing topic that I am so excited that I got to share with you, especially bringing through these very vulnerable pieces, because the true is key in finding your true authentic self. It isn't going from one extreme, from being someone who is shy and meek and afraid of talking at all, to being a force to be reckoned with and like, here is me no matter what you think and in your face. Like, I don't care who you are. This is who I am. That is one extreme to another. There is a balance in there. That's beautiful. Where we can respect others while getting respect back. And the biggest key in that is vulnerability and boundaries. We can't be all boundaries because no one sees us. But we can't be all vulnerability without boundaries because then we are taken advantage of. So it's finding that beautiful medium. And that's for another episode. We will talk about that. It has been amazing today to share this. I wish you all amazing healing on your journey. And until next time, take care of yourself. With so much love and gratitude, I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode. My hope today is that the message continues to guide you along your path to healing. To learn more about me and my purposeful work, visit my website at abouthealingmedium.com. You can also follow About Healing Medium on Facebook and Instagram, where you can find the episode's healing guidance, quotes, tips, insights, and chances to win free stuff. To ask a question or to share comments, email me at abouthealingpodcast@gmail.com, or feel free to reach me on Facebook and Instagram at About Healing Medium. Until next time, be kind to yourself.